They will be staying as long as it takes. 133 cardinals locked inside the Sistine Chapel to elect a successor to the late Pope Francis. A first vote expected around 7 p.m. local time. Transmissions jammed, all cell phones off inside of the hall. Yinka Oyetade has more.
It's a process that has remained virtually unchanged for the last 8 centuries. The highly secretive method of choosing a pope is known as the papal conclave. In theory, any baptized Catholic man can be in the running for leader, but in reality, nearly every pope has been a cardinal before they were elected. It's here in the Vatican's iconic Sistine Chapel that the College of Cardinals convened to hold a conclave. Around 120 cardinals under the age of 80 will vote in secret for their chosen candidate, writing their name on a ballot and placing it in a chalice on the altar. After each round of voting, smoke is released from the chapel's chimney, black smoke indicating that no candidate has been selected, while white smoke signals that the church has a new leader. The process is shrouded in secrecy, with communication devices prohibited during a conclave. Cardinals risk being excommunicated if they leak information. If no candidate receives the required 2/3 majority during the first ballot, another round of voting takes place. There can be up to 4 rounds per day. Under relatively new rules introduced by Pope Benedict XVI, if no one is selected after 33 rounds, the cardinals go to a runoff of the top 2 contenders. It's with the famous words "Habemus Papam," meaning we have a pope, that the newly elected leader is presented to thousands of eager faithful from the main balcony of St. Peter's Basilica. Donning a fresh white cassock and a new papal name, honouring a saint or a previous pontiff, the new pope takes the reins of the Catholic Church.
And with us to talk about it from Chicago, Father Stan Chu Ilo, research professor of World Catholicism and African Studies at DePaul University. Thank you for being with us here on France 24.
Thank you very much for having me.
Just to be complete, you're also the president of the Pan-African Catholic Theology and Pastoral Network. With us as well, Jean Duchesne, special advisor to the Archbishop of Paris. Good to see you.
Yes.
Are we going to go through 33 rounds, Jean Duchesne?
Could be. Who knows?
It's not going to be one, that's for sure.
No, certainly not.
Tell us a little bit about why it's so open.
Well, simply because they don't know each other. And even, I mean, finding among all those guys that are, Pope Francis appointed 108 of the 133 cardinals, voters. So they don't know, and also they are very diverse because of their origin, but also because of their church identity. You've got religious people of various congregations. And
what does that mean, different church identities?
Well, simply that they, for example, there's a big difference between the Carmelite and the Jesuit, between the Benedictine and the Dominican, between somebody who is a Thomist and somebody who is more an adept of modern theology.
Right.
There are also great differences as far as spirituality is concerned. For theology, spirituality, whether people privilege the liturgy or the personal relationship to God, and there are a lot of parameters.
Okay, so that sets the table nicely. Stan Chu Ilo, you've just heard described so many unknowns with so many new cardinals appointed under Pope Francis. What do you see as sort of the dividing lines? Well, it seems like have we lost the connection there with Chicago? It appears.
I can hear you.
All right, we can hear you. We can hear you perfectly. What are sort of the fault lines before we go into names? Just what are the fault lines in terms of reformist versus conservatives? What is the fault line here?
I think that there are many fault lines here, but I will go back to what happened in 1963. We are exactly in the Catholic Church at that kind of time. That is when John the 23rd had called for the Second Vatican Council. He initiated the council, and in less than a year, he died. The Cardinals then had to choose whether to continue the reform that he had initiated, the program he had outlined, or to find a different path. And since the end of the Second Vatican Council in 1965 to today, I think the Catholic Church has struggled with some of the issues that the Second Vatican Council tried to deal with. Number one, what is the relationship of the church to the modern world? Number two, how does the church reconcile itself to the fact that we now live in a post-Christian Western society and a post-Western Christian world? So how do you deal with the question of diversity, cultural pluralism, and inclusion? And thirdly, the question of the legacy of Pope Francis, who tried, I think, like the previous Pope since John the 23rd, to try to bring about the spirit of Second Vatican Council and implement it. Some would say he was disruptive. Some would say he continued with the spirit. So I think those three factors will play out, and we have already had it in the different speeches that the Cardinals have made in the course of the conclave, including the homily this morning made by Cardinal Ray about the need for unity and to give hope to the world in the very complex situation we find ourselves today.
That post-Christian world that you describe in the West and the changing of where Catholicism is going, did Francis not embody that just by the mere fact that he was from Argentina, that he was the first pope in more than 1,000 years who was not a European?
Yeah, surely he embodied it, and that is why in the last 100 years or so, I have never seen a pope so opposed internally by his own people. Pope Francis faced a lot of opposition. So I call him a post-colonial pope because he understood that Christendom, or restoring those ideals and projects of the past times, will not work. You cannot meet today's challenges with yesterday's answers. And I think that he already began to recognize this. That's why he did not embrace all the appurtenances and paraphernalia of the papal office. He was simple, he was humble, he understood that in order to capture the cultural and spiritual imagination of the world today, the church has to reinvent itself in order to answer the many complex questions today. People are no longer simply satisfied with power, privilege, and tradition. They want to know how these traditions can speak to the poverty of the world today, the fear about the future, the rise in extremism in the world, both on the right and the left. So I think that he already embodied some significant movement away from the Western domination of Catholicism, Western priorities and practices, Western rituals that was imported to the rest of the global South and the rest of the world. Today, even in the Western heartland, the churches in France are emptying out. The churches in Italy are emptying out. The young people want to be connected. I mean, you saw what happened when Notre Dame was rebuilt. People have a hunger for Catholicism, for Christianity, for spirituality, but they are looking for a different form of Catholicism and Christianity that focuses on the people and not on us, the clergy, the bishops, and the powers and the privileges. That, in my mind, is what Pope Francis did. And I think that the Cardinals will be considering whether to continue with that style or to chart a different course, but either decision has far-reaching consequences for the future of Catholicism.
Jean Duchesne, do you agree that this is the choice as laid out in picking the next pope?
Well, it is one. Of course, I agree. It is one of the choices because there are other fault lines. There are other divisions in the church. There is one between, say, North and South rather than Europe and the rest of the world. Because I think that the situation in the U.S. is not so different from what it is in Europe. See, the U.S. now is, I think, but of course. This is my impression from here in Europe, that the U.S. also is experiencing secularization. The number of nuns is growing, but there are other problems.
There's more people in church, but they are losing members.
Yes,
yeah.
Okay. But there are other problems concerning the understanding of the liturgy, concerning what to do with migrants, concerning also the problem of power in the church, the situation of women, concerning also sexual morality. So there are a lot of problems, and the situation now, of course, is that the West must realize that it has lost the illusion that it is the mother church. There's only one mother church. It is the historic Church of the Apostles. It's not the Church of the West, because it is simply the place where it grew most in the first. It's
called Roman
millennia.
Catholicism. So doesn't that already in the name imply that it is Western-centric?
Yes, but be careful. There's a difference between Rome and Europe. Rome has always implied some kind of a universality. Something that is not limited. It is the notion. See, Christianity is what has allowed Rome to go beyond the empire, simply because of the gospel. Because there has to be a thirst.
So what would
among
be what and who
apostles.
would be the best choice for the
Pardon?
next? What and who would be the best choice?
The best choice, I don't know, because it is difficult to say now. Because my opinion or my theory, it is that, see, the Cardinals are likely to choose one guy. But this does not mean what they know about this guy does not foretell, does not allow you to tell you what he will do when he's Pope. And I think so. And what is important is not so much his origin, whether he's a European, an African, an Asian, a South American, or he comes from India, or God knows where. Because the man who is elected Pope is no longer the same man. See, I remember I had the privilege of meeting the last three popes before they became popes. Wojtyła, Ratzinger, and briefly Bergoglio. Now, Bergoglio, I remember very well Bergoglio as a very shy, unassuming man. Now, when he became Pope, he was different. It was the same thing with Ratzinger. Ratzinger clearly became Pope in spite of himself. He didn't want to become Pope. And we saw the result.
So, Stan Chu Ilo, what kind of profile would fit best? Who would, what part of the world, and which you laid out for us the choice? What kind of candidate would be the best, and who's got the best shot?
Well, you know that as good Catholics, that we believe that the Holy Spirit will lead the Cardinals to make the right choice. But like Pope Benedict himself said in one interview many years ago, that sometimes also the choices that have been made didn't turn out well, because the church is still human. I agree with Jean in terms of that the problems we have today in the Catholic Church and in the world are complex. We cannot actually narrow this problem to one factor. But if we go back to the message that Pope Francis gave during COVID, when he stood at St. Peter's Square and spoke to an empty space, signifying also the emptiness of our humanity, if you like, our naked humanity in its vulnerability. He said, we see that all of us are implicated in what happens to any of us. I think that such is the kind of pope that we are looking for, a pope who embodies something beyond where you come from, the color of your skin, your religion, a pope who understands that humanity at this point in time is broken, rising tensions in the world. This morning we hear about the war about to begin if care is not taken between Pakistan and India. We know of the war in Gaza, the war in Ukraine, the war in Congo. So I think we're looking at a pope who is a peacemaker, who actually embodies the word pontiff, means a bridge, someone who will be a bridge builder, not someone who will actually polarize the world further, someone who will try to bring especially many people in the Catholic Church who are trying to be included.
Are you confident that that's the choice that the 133 cardinals will make, not the one of concentric circles of love as espoused by J.D. Vance? I love my family more than my neighbor, more than the people.
Yeah, it's interesting you mention what is going on in the United States, because this is a classic example of the kind of Catholicism that, in my own thinking, is going to meet with many challenges. This idea of Christian nationalism, of thinking that American exceptionalism means that the rest of the world have to meet America, not on a common ground, but on the terms of America. So I think that it is much more than that. A pope who understands that the world today is tired of extremism, whether it's from religion or from politics, is tired of exclusionism, of protectionism. It is a world meant for all. So that's the kind of pope, I think, that will capture the spiritual and cultural imagination of the world, especially young people who are disconnected. I teach at the university here, and once in a while I come to Europe and I teach in universities there. And young people have a hunger for change. But if what we offer them is just the same tired old division, exclusion, confusion, ideologies, then we are creating a world that we will be sad about to hand over to the next generation.
And it's just the beginning of this conclave. We'll see what those cardinals decide. Father Stan Chu Ilo, thank you so much for being with us from Chicago. I want to thank you, Jean Duchesne, for joining us here on France 24.
Thank you.
And by the way, we'll have live coverage later with France 24's Stuart Norval from St. Peter's Square. That's starting at 9 p.m. Paris time, right here on France 24.